Mic check. I've had several people tell me the volume has been low, so I'm hoping people live in the chat with me this morning. Good morning, happy Friday. How's the volume sound? Is it too low? Is it too loud? Is it just right? Come on, play Goldilocks for me, all right? 5x5, Brett says. I appreciate that. Just don't 73 me quite yet, because we got plenty to get to here with Bishop on Air on this Friday, including your Discord calls. So be sure to go and check out the Discord link. Either go to bishoponair.com and click Discord, or you should be able to find the Discord channel simply by looking at the description for this video. All right, so Doobie-Loo on X saying volume's just fine. Sounds good, sounds good. All right, appreciate all of that, guys. Even Fish and Gold 5 and 5, Brett 5 and 5x5. Appreciate that, guys. A little bit of ham radio lingo. I'm always amazed at just how prevalent amateur radio really is. And if you're not getting your amateur radio license and you're one of those who wants to be prepared, you really should go and get your amateur radio license. All right, so we got stuff to tackle today. I talked with Thomas Magg, the attorney in one of the plaintiffs' groups for the Southern District of Illinois federal lawsuit against the state's gun and magazine ban. So he was part of that hearing earlier this week. Johnny says still low. So let me see if I can crank this up a little bit more. And the issue is on my mixer, I'm showing red. On my converter, it's showing, good. So we'll see. Anyways, all right. So talked with Thomas Magg. We'll share that with you. Also, we got to hear some of what President Donald Trump and President Joe Biden had to say at the southern U.S. border, plus Governor J.B. Pritzker talking about asylum seekers yesterday. So just some of what's coming up here with Bishop on Air. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Maybe lower the music. Fish and golf, gotcha. I'm just getting the show started. But gonna have to crank that music back up so I can take a bit of a breather and come back and get right into it. All right, it's Bishop on Air. Case against Illinois' gun and magazine ban continues, with federal judge Stephen McGlynn moving forward with the case on the merits, as you've got the Northern District cases that are on hold because plaintiffs there are seeking the U.S. Supreme Court to intervene again. But down in the Southern District, Judge Stephen McGlynn saying, no, we're moving forward. Welcome back. Bishop on Air, each and every weekday morning with you here across the internet. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you want a Bishop on Air mug, go check it out. Just go to bishoponair.com. So we have an order that was issued yesterday by the judge, Stephen McGlynn, in this case. Let's go ahead and pull that up for you so you can read this. So this is, of course, an official order from Judge Stephen McGlynn, issued on the 29th, leap year. Gotta love that. But anyways, he says, in accordance with the court's order issued during the scheduling conference held on February 28th, the following discovery deadlines are implemented. So we're getting more indication as to the timeline of how rapid we're going to get to the merits of this case challenging Illinois' gun and magazine ban. Again, that was instituted in January of 2023. So it's been over a year and a month since we've had this gun and magazine ban implemented. And don't forget about that gun registry as well, which is also being challenged, something I talked with Thomas Mag about, the attorney for the case Langley, which is part of the plaintiffs group. You've got 4 different cases lumped together in the Southern District. So the timeline now we're seeing on this is being laid out by the judge. So let's look back at this order here. Parties shall submit their initial disclosures and written discovery requests with the court, carbon copied, no later than March 13th. So March 13th is one of those deadlines. Parties shall submit the identities of their affirmative experts and their subject matter expertise with the courts, carbon copied, no later than March 27th. So 2 weeks from now and then 2 weeks from then, understanding that supplemental expert identification may be necessary. Then parties shall respond to requests for written discovery with the court, carbon copied, no later than April 3rd. So you can kind of see it's going to be week after week after week of us getting some information here. Order to issue setting a status conference to discuss the status discovery will be in mid-April. This status conference shall be held via Zoom and will assess the progress of discovery and gauge the amount of cooperation among the parties in preparing this matter for a hearing on the merits. The court may discuss the targeted trial month and set the date for the final pretrial conference at the upcoming status conference. So again, the dates, got to have some initial disclosures by March 13th filed. Then by March 27th, got to have the identities of experts that the litigants are going to use. Then the parties are going to be responding to requests for written discovery no later than April 3rd. And mid-April, there will be some kind of, some kind of status conference. Now, what all this means, I talked with Thomas Mag yesterday, and he's, again, the lead attorney in the Langley case, and he was in the courtroom yesterday, along with, in the docket entry, kind of, a minute of the proceeding that happened on the 28th, that is available at the docket, and it talks about, you had Judge Stephen McGlynn there, Sean Brady with FFL Illinois plaintiffs, Thomas Mag on behalf of the Langley plaintiffs, Matthew Rowan participating on behalf of the Barnett plaintiffs, David Segal with Siegel, I think, participating on behalf of the Harrell plaintiffs. So you also had the state there as well. Christopher Wells and Catherine Hunt Muse participating on behalf of J.B. Pritzker and Brendan Kelly and Kwame Raoul. But interesting also, this case has several county defendants as well that have had to take part in all of this because some of these lawsuits do include suing local counties. But anyways, Thomas Mag was there, chatted with him yesterday, and here's some of what he provided as to what exactly it looks like from the perspective of the litigants.
What we know is that the court ordered that parties are to submit their initial disclosures and written discovery requests no later than March 13th. So in about 2 weeks, parties are to disclose the identities of their affirmative experts by March 27th. Court's going to set another discovery conference and enter a further, more detailed scheduling order on discovery, but suffice it to say the court made it clear that it was ready for his case to start proceeding, and it didn't need any more excuses to delay discovery and proceeding in this case.
So, talking with Mag yesterday, he also laid out what he sees in the order that Judge McGlynn issued last week, that roadmap. What does that roadmap signify to the Langley plaintiffs?
Signifies to me that the court's given some thought as to the different scenarios for lawful self-defense. One, of course, is being in the home. The other is what I'll call traditional carry outside the home. And then he's also giving consideration to some of the more extreme possibilities, such as riots and civil disturbances. Of course, East St. Louis 100 years ago was made somewhat famous for a rather notorious riot. So I guess Judge McGlynn his family being from the area is probably familiar with East St. Louis history on that regard.
And, of course, this case being heard in that East St. Louis Southern District courtroom. But McGlynn also talked about, are these weapons good for battling tyranny?
Absolutely.
So it's kind of fascinating to see that as well. Thomas Mag also giving us an update on that Fifth Amendment challenge that he brought and where that could possibly go in the mix of all of this.
I think it greatly depends on how he rules on the Fifth Amendment motions, plural. If he finds that there's some issue in dispute, material issue in dispute, he's probably obliged to deny both summary judgment motions, but at that point, it would be part of the trial on the merits.
So again, what we're looking at here is you've got the Second Amendment arguments, right? A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the Second Amendment. But the other arguments that at least Mag initially filed in his state-level challenge that was transferred to federal court because it was bringing up U.S. Constitution questions wasn't just the Second Amendment. It was also the 14th Amendment and vagueness, and also that Fifth Amendment argument dealing with the gun ban registry, which from the last time I checked, state police had yet to update the gun ban registry. Let's see if we've got any updates here. And the latest numbers from Illinois State Police, scrolling down, and they have not been updated. So 2.4 million FOID card holders, that number's not been updated, and neither have the numbers of those who filed affidavits telling Illinois State Police they have banned items after the January 1st registry. So that's still 1.4 some odd % of total FOID card holders, but that FOID card number has not been updated. And you look at some of the other statistics as to the number of FOID card applications, even in February, you're looking at, in January, there were 15,000 new FOID applications received, and the numbers approved 15,000 plus. What about all those other numbers from the past year? Those have not been added to the state's total tally. So who knows what the actual compliance rate is. Regardless, back to Mag, of course, talking about that Fifth Amendment argument, how you are not to be compelled to incriminate yourself. So more to this issue of the Fifth Amendment and where Thomas Mag sees his challenge of that going, while the court continues to focus just on the Second Amendment issues. So what's going to happen with this?
On the other hand, I think we've made a very good showing that the state wants people to register their firearms even after December 31st of last year. And just like the original National Firearms Act of 1934, which the U.S. Supreme Court struck on Fifth Amendment grounds in 1968, by registering your firearms after December 31st of last year, you are admitting that you possessed a firearm unlawfully and thus are incriminating yourself. That's prohibited under the Fifth Amendment. And
we'll see where the court goes with that Fifth Amendment argument in this case challenging Illinois' gun and magazine ban. Again, the past year, we've seen these cases go up to the next courts and even up to the U.S. Supreme Court on preliminary actions, right? And those preliminary actions were just, we want to hold this right now from being enforced while the case plays out because people allegedly are being harmed, right? That's the idea of a preliminary action, a preliminary injunction. But then in the Southern District, when Mag initially issued that, it went up to the Seventh Circuit, and the Seventh Circuit put a stay on that, essentially saying McGlynn's order's not in effect right now until we take the case up and decide on it. And they took the case up, and they decided that the state had a likelihood of winning on the case. But it wasn't that the state won on the case, right? Then you had the plaintiffs say, well, we wanted the U.S. Supreme Court to intervene on these preliminary actions. The U.S. Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to do that. Wait until the full record's built. Mag took that as, let's get a full record built. So that's why we're moving forward on the merits of this on a request, a motion for summary judgment. And a motion for summary judgment essentially is, this case is done in the court. We went through it all. We figured it out. here's the judge's ruling. But what's that going to look like? Mag gave us a little bit of a timeline on when to expect these next things to pop into place.
I think that this case will be tried sometime middle this summer, yes.
So middle this summer, we could see some action in the courts where you'll have a trial-like of atmosphere. But what does that trial look like? Is it a jury by trial? Is it a bench trial? How is this thing really going to play out in the space of the judiciary?
It will not be a jury trial. I don't believe anybody's demanded a jury. It will be a bench trial. The way I foresee it, there will be some legal briefs filed, basically making arguments to the court. The various parties will call witnesses, submit other evidence, either stipulations, admissions by the opponent, or live testimony, depositions, possibly video testimony. And the court will hear the evidence, weigh the facts, find the credibility of the various witnesses, and make its conclusions of law and issue an appropriate decision.
And again, that decision will be on the merits, summary judgment, the circuit court saying, no, we're done now. It's off to the appeals court. What the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals does with the record that Mag and the plaintiffs are going to build in this case, we shall see. But obviously, a lot of people frustrated at how long this is taking. I won't continue to track it with you. Appreciate you guys being here. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join me each and every weekday morning as we broadcast live. But if you can't make it live, totally understand. Hope you enjoy the segments. But one thing about being live with us is you can join the Discord on Fridays. We open things up, so be sure to hit that like, subscribe, notification. Go to the Discord channel, join that preemptively. And we'll get to that a little bit later on here with the live show. But I appreciate you guys checking this out. Bishop on Air everywhere. All right, don't forget that. Real simple. bishoponair.com. All right, guys, go ahead and get yourself lined up to get into that Discord channel. I'm going to see if I can go ahead and get your calls started and the staging area. We'll build that up. Got my microphone turned on in there, so we'll start the stage. And in the segment after this next one, we will take your calls. All right, so anything you want to talk about. I mean, it's Freestyle Friday, as they like to say in the talk radio space. So I've had consultants tell me, oh, don't call it that. So get into the staging area. We will get to your calls coming up here shortly with Bishop on Air. That'll be the final segment of the program. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on with the southern U.S. border. All right, stay tuned.
The United States is being overrun by the Biden migrant crime. It's a new form of vicious violation to our country. It's migrant crime. We call it Biden migrant crime, but that's a little bit long.
The very same time we have President Biden down in Brownsville, Texas, which was an obligatory visit by him. He'd never been to the border. In fact, I don't think he's on the border itself right now. He's in some sanitized location in the Brownsville area, not seeing the razor wire that Texas has put up around Brownsville.
Plain politics of issue. Instead of telling members of Congress to block this legislation, join me, or I'll join you in telling the Congress to pass this bipartisan border security bill.
Some of what was said yesterday by former President Donald Trump, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, and President Joe Biden when it comes to the border issue, and even Governor J.B. Pritzker talking a bit about the border issue yesterday as well. Welcome back, Bishop on Air. Thanks for hanging out. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and don't forget, if you're watching live, you can join us in the Discord. So yesterday, you had high-profile speeches close to the southern U.S. border, video of Trump waving at individuals wanting to cross over the southern U.S. border. It's fascinating. But you had President Joe Biden, as we heard Texas Governor Greg Abbott there say, is in a sanitized area. Well, let's go ahead and hear just some of what the two individuals who apparently are the ones that are going to be the major party nominees for president. Here's Donald Trump at the southern U.S. border yesterday talking about, well, his plan on how to deal with all of these things.
Walls and wheels, I always said. It's one thing never gets obsolete, a wall and a wheel. Everything else is obsolete about 2 weeks after you come up with it. And we got Mexico to give us 28,000 soldiers to take care of our border. We had the safest border in the history of our country, and now outside of this area where Texas has done an amazing job, and in a pretty short period of time, they're going to have it all covered. They have just been incredible. What the operation that they showed me is nothing less than incredible. And I'll say this, it's a military operation. I mean, we have this is like a war. It's a military operation. So we had remain in Mexico. Remember that? You can't come into our country, and Mexico agreed to it. And I'll tell you someday, I'll tell you why. Safe third agreements, asylum bans, Title 42, and rapid removals. But Title 42 was so important, rapid removal so important. But the best was remain in Mexico. You stay in Mexico. We had catch and release in Mexico. We had catch before that. It was catch and release a criminal, and they released him in the United States. We had no more catch and release. Our catch and release was we released him in Mexico. And if you broke the law, we caught you, we deported you, or we did something else. But we were doing a great job, and that's where it stood. And then we had an election that we ended up getting many millions of more votes than we did. We did much better in 2020 than we ever even thought about doing in 2016. And very bad things happened. And from that moment on, it was a whole different ballgame in Texas and all over. But the governor in Texas picked up the ball, and they've done an incredible job. And I'll tell you, it's an honor to be here.
And Trump talking about Texas Governor Greg Abbott has done to essentially give more authority to state law enforcement in dealing with these things. We'll talk about Illinois in a bit and what Illinois has done. Governor J.B. Pritzker speaking to a group of criminal justice reform advocates yesterday, and he talked about the asylum seekers that he says are getting state assistance to go through their asylum process. But regardless, more numbers from former President Donald Trump about the migrant situation.
Last year, almost half of all ICE arrests were criminal aliens charged for more than 33,000 assaults, 3,000 robberies, 6,900 burglaries, 7,500 weapons crimes. This is all migrant crime. 4,300 sex crimes, 1,600 kidnappings, and 1,700 homicides and murders. These are the people that are coming into our country. And they're coming from jails, and they're coming from prisons, and they're coming from mental institutions, and they're coming from insane asylums, and they're terrorists. They're being let into our country, and it's horrible. It's horrible. And, you know, I know many of the leaders of these other countries that are doing it, and it's not just South America, it's all over the world. What he's done to our country is he's destroying our country.
So, again, President Trump, who is dominating the Republican field, he is essentially the presumptive Republican nominee, who, by the way, a judge in Illinois, Cook County judge who apparently deals with minor traffic violations, decided to take Trump off the ballot, and Trump immediately appealed that, so we'll watch that play out, even though early voting's been going on for like 2 weeks now, and a lot of people seemingly they had the option of voting for Trump. Whether they did or not, I don't know. But you have even the black community up in Chicago repeating some of the same stuff that Trump is saying about how these migrants aren't asylum seekers. They're, there's a criminal element throughout that string of people coming across the southern U.S. border, coming into the United States. But to President Biden, He attended an event talking about border security, but he talked more about a bill in Congress that he wanted to get passed to give money to Ukraine, give money to Israel, give money to states that are dealing with the migrant crisis right now. But he also talked about, hey, it would give more border security as well. Here's President Biden.
With this deal, we could hire 1,500 additional border security agents, 1,500 additional officers.
Oh, interesting to see there that he was actually standing next to Alejandro Mayorkas right here, where Mayorkas didn't he just get impeached by the U.S. House? Anyways, here back to the president.
500 additional officers, and between ports of entry, for the last 4 years, staffing has been roughly that, just flat. Agents working overtime, spending long hours patrolling the border, making major sacrifices. And I know it takes a big toll on them and their families. That's why in December I signed a bill finally getting Border Patrol agents what I've been pushed by and reminded by the congressman, overtime pay they deserve. And finally getting overtime pay. I mean, it's ridiculous it took this long. It was long past time, and I was proud to do it, but we need to do more. It's time to step up. It's time to step up, provide them with significantly more personnel and capability.
Well, but what are those capabilities? Are those capabilities just to, essentially let them in the country and then give them that credit card and some kind of phone and then bus them to wherever or to, force Texas to have to deal with this? To when they ultimately have to send people to places like Chicago, for instance. More from President Biden.
Compromise legislation will also give me as president, or the next president, emergency authority to temporarily shut down the border between ports of entry when the numbers of immigrants and migrants, overwhelm the border, straining the Border Patrol's ability to process them.
But you also had in there apparently an idea of allowing 5,000 a week or something to that degree. And from my understanding, a president already has the executive authority to be able to declare that the border is a national security issue and to shut it down. I mean, isn't that kind of what Donald Trump did? That Biden came in and reversed. Just putting out there the criticism that I hear quite a bit about the incumbent president, Joe Biden. But again, he goes on to talk about what he sees in this deal that he wants to make happen.
Then we also need more cutting-edge inspection machines to detect and stop fentanyl from entering the United States of America. A year ago, I stood at the border in El Paso and I watched these machines at work. They were able to detect everything from fentanyl to weapons to people being smuggled in cargo containers. This compromise bill would provide an additional $424 million for 100 more of these machines and could save lives in the process.
I don't know what exactly that number was. Was it 4,343 million?
This bill would provide an additional $424 million.
Was it 424 million or 43? Anyways. Okay, so you have that. And of course, the humanitarian impacts here are devastating. Human trafficking, the sex trafficking, the death that's happening for people who you don't pay the cartels, the drugs, and so on. And surely there's a lot of individuals who are truly seeking asylum, but are others seeking asylum? Governor J.B. Pritzker in Illinois, who's been very critical of Governor Greg Abbott down in Texas, still says Illinois is a welcoming state. We're going to continue to welcome these individuals, and we've got free health care for individuals over the age of 42, and we've got taxpayer dollars helping with housing, state taxpayer dollars, and a whole host of other things, including helping these migrants with their asylum claims. Here's Governor J.B. Pritzker at the LSC, which is a criminal justice legal support group. He made these comments yesterday as part of about a 10-minute presentation, but ultimately Governor Pritzker zeroing in on the legal help that Illinois taxpayers are providing what he calls asylum seekers.
Just a reminder, because there are people outside this room who may be watching who don't know this, but the asylum seekers that are here, They are legally in the United States. These are not undocumented people. They're here legally, and we should treat them as we do every resident of Illinois, but we should treat them as such, and that's been one of my missions. As part of these efforts, the Illinois Department of Human Services partnered with the United States Citizen and Immigration Services to stand up legal clinics that help eligible individuals apply for temporary protected status and work authorization. Over 1,000 volunteers, pro bono attorneys, and staff members from our community-based partners have made this possible.
So the governor talking about the Department of Human Services being tasked with helping with this, but also seeming to indicate that there's a lot of volunteers. I assume that is the case. You've got a lot of nonprofit groups that are helping out with things like hygiene products, especially in the face of news stories that indicate you've got the asylum seekers, as the governor calls them, not having enough diapers, for instance, for their children. But what is all this costing the taxpayers? If you go to the comptroller's website for asylum seekers, you'll see that the Illinois comptroller has some dollars laid out for how much has been spent since November of 2023, and they say $31.2 million has been spent. And you can see some of these totals here. In particular, the city of Chicago getting $11.6 million. $10 million going to the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. That'll be interesting to see where those dollars go. You've got Garter World Consulting Limited getting $1 million. And then you can just go through and look at all of these funds even more so and take some time with that. Just search Illinois Comptroller Asylum Seekers. So again, that's only the total from November 1st of 2023. We've been dealing with this since August of 2022. And some other places you can look for the actual costs on the comptroller's website. And I got to spend a lot more time on this just to delve deeper into it. But if you go to the comptroller's website for the checkbook, right? Just search Comptroller Illinois checkbook and you'll be able to find the payments portion. If you type in something like Immigration Project Inc., a company that deals with, a nonprofit that helps, a variety of things when it comes to the immigration question, it has here year to date for fiscal year 2024, $314,000. $314,000 if you can't see that. So I'll go ahead and click on Immigration Project Inc., and you'll see it pulls up a whole host of different expenditures. All right, so all coming from Human Services, the Department of Human Services, $20,000, $28,000, $12,000, $19,000, $33,000. It just, you can go through and see all of these payments and even look at the contracts in particular instances. So clearly, there's a lot of dollars going in various places. And if you're curious what the Immigration Project is, we'll go to their website and check that out, immigrationproject.org, and you can see, let me get this out of the way. We are the principal provider of immigration legal services in central and southern Illinois. So they provide access to immigration justice to the immigration community in downstate Illinois for over 25 years. And they'll take new clients, but obviously the governor's saying there's a lot of volunteers involved. Well, volunteers getting a lot of these dollars, at least when it comes to this particular organization. And I imagine that's just one particular organization. Because again, if we look at just some of the asylum seeker expenditures, you've got, the Garda World getting some of those dollars. You've got an alarm system getting some of those dollars, multi-aid alarm system. And again, go through, click some of these contracts, maybe able to get more detail anyways. So that's kind of where we're at in the grand scheme of the ongoing migrant crisis. The presidential contenders holding joint, or rather competing news conferences. Governor J.B. Pritzker talking about the immigration, issue and how taxpayers are being impacted by this, and how the asylum seekers, as they call them, are getting services from the state. So interesting to see all that play out. It is Bishop on Air. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate you guys each and every weekday morning here with me. So stay tuned. As always, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us here with Bishop on Air. All right. I again want to thank you very much. And if you are live with us, then stay tuned, because we'll get to your We'll get to your Discord calls in short order. I got to push that button there. I didn't realize I had it stuck on that. Anyways, that's what you get when you're dealing with all of these buttons in front of you. What are you going to do? All right. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bishop on Air. All right, let's do it. Discord Friday. Let's pull up the chat here and see who wants to sound off. And really, you can sound off about anything. Thanks for hanging out with us live here with Bishop on Air. You can find me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air on all the social media, or you can go to bishoponair.com and join me there. All right, we got several people in the audience right now for the Discord channel. And again, real simple. All right, just go to Bishop on Air. This is how you do it. Go to bishoponair.com. And then you'll see my flashy little website. Go to Discord, and voila, you'll be in there. All right, it's that simple. And it says accept invite, and you can accept the invite and join us. But regardless, let's go ahead and get to some of the voices that are in there. Warsaw Patriots, I don't know how long he's been listening, but I do appreciate him chiming in from time to time here. So let's go ahead and hear what Warsaw has to say. So you are up and ready to rock and roll, Warsaw. What's going on?
Not a whole lot. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning.
As far as the case is concerned, as far as with the Protect the Illinois Communities Act, it sounds pretty promising. I mean, regardless, we gotta just wait it out at this point, because from what I've gathered, from Thomas Megg, I mean, we're pretty much following the exact same pattern as Oregon State's assault weapons ban. I mean, they actually ruled theirs was unconstitutional, but state's attorney over there actually ruled and then appealed it to the state to actually be, try to get the TRO taken down and all the other structures. So we'll see how this plays out. And of course, we're still waiting for the Supreme Court. And as far as our border is concerned, I mean, with the situation with Israel and going on with Philistine, the country Philistine, not Palestine, the correct term is Philistine. I mean, the possibility of Hamas or Hezbollah, that should put you on the spectrum of maybe we should close the border, maybe.
Well, you're talking about the possibility of known and unknown terrorists coming across the southern U.S. border. And listen, I mean, that's a big concern, that there could be even just small scale type of terrorist attacks. And clearly, these types of things could be targeted towards infrastructure, could be targeted towards soft targets, could be targeted towards whatever. That's a legitimate concern. Then you've got the idea of how many thousands or tens of thousands of military-aged Chinese men coming across the southern U.S. border. Mix that in with other concerns. I've heard people like Brett Weinstein and even Dr. Phil on Joe Rogan's podcast recently talking about the idea of allowing for non-citizens to become members of the U.S. military. They wouldn't have any allegiance necessarily to the U.S. Constitution or to the countrymen, but the concern would be they would have an allegiance just to following the orders to get citizenship. So, there's some strong concerns there.
Gangs. We've got Venezuelan gangs and MS-13 in New York. I mean, God knows what else is in our country right now at this point.
It's pretty incredible. Warsaw, appreciate you chiming in. Let's see if we can get Jorge up on. He's been on before. Appreciate that, and him chiming into the live chat as well throughout the program. Jorge, what's up?
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing, Greg?
Thumbs up. It's Friday.
Hey, it's a great day. I just want to say Governor Pritzker has no idea what he's doing when it comes to the migrant situation. All these people coming in illegally, migrants, they are coming in. Some of the people, sure, they're coming in for asylum seekers, but then you got some of them coming in, from gangs, from bad places, wherever they came from. And Governor Pritzker likes to say, oh, well, they're asylum seekers. They're not asylum seekers. Some of them are, some of them aren't. It just gets me a little bit irritated when he's lying to our faces. And it's incredible how people are believing the story. And to me, it's just, It's ridiculous, you
well,
know?
and then you get into the humanitarian concerns of maybe a family does indeed have a legitimate asylum claim. They get shipped up to Chicago, regardless of who's to blame for that, either Illinois' sanctuary state policies or Governor Greg Abbott being heartless. You know, point fingers wherever you want. Regardless, the reality is you've got a family who may be indeed seeking asylum or a better way of life, and they were coaxed into it improperly by a cartel that they gave their life savings to then get up to Chicago with no money. And now you've got a criminal element there of migrants that have been found to say, hey, migrant, come here, go steal some stuff and I'll get you a fake ID so you can get a job to help your family. I mean, the humanitarian issues there are just appalling, and that itself should be a reason why to shut the border, I would assume, for a lot of people wanting border security.
Yeah, and I believe that we should just straighten our borders. President Biden likes to play the political game of, oh, we got to have him jump on our side. I mean, I think he's referring to Donald Trump. But in reality, none of these people want to work with each other. It's all more of a political game. And it's sad that how we end up in this situation, and in reality, nothing really gets done. So it's only irritating to the point where, you know, nothing gets done, right?
Yeah.
So other than that, yeah, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jorge. And both parties have been, kind of to blame for this. Well, I guess I should say the establishment, right? Because there's clearly a difference between these things. Papa, what is that? Papa. Okay, Papa raised their hand. What's going on, Papa?
Oh, Greg.
Hey.
Hey, so I just want to say, as a leader, that's not what we stand for.
So if you could just hold on 1 second. We had a little bit of a drop from the live stream. I'm recording this locally, so people watching this later will be able to see the whole thing. But just restate the timeline of your migrant status here in the United States, and you said you're in the military. So reset that, and then kind of, I guess, reevaluate the current administration's border policies.
Yes. So I came to stay in 2013.
Okay.
And I came to stay for college. And after I graduated college, I joined the U.S. Army.
So you were a Chinese national, though, but then you came to this country in the. Okay, so you came to this country and became naturalized, becoming a U.S. naturalized citizen. Okay.
So at first I had a green. I had a green card. Okay. So I came to this country with legal paperwork before I set a foot, like before I crossed the border.
Sure.
When I mean border, it means a custom in an airport,
right?
Not a gap.
You went through a legal port of entry, right? You went through a legal port of entry with proper documentation in 2013. You come into this country, then you become naturalized, and you wanted to serve the people of the United States.
And I was vetted. I had everything checked out before I even set a foot on this, country that I believe in. But now with the current administration, I don't know anymore.
That's incredible. So yeah, I mean, what you going through that, and I hear this a lot from those who did go through the process of being naturalized. You probably know more about the U.S. Constitution than a lot of people graduating high school that were born in rural Illinois, right? But seeing what's happening here, I mean, when you see the numbers, anywhere from 8 to 13 million people crossing over, claiming asylum in the past 3 years, that's got to be frustrating.
It is really frustrating. Like, it literally said, okay, so why would I bother to follow the law when I do, other people don't, which is really liberal. Like, in my opinion, it's really, really like a Democrat type of thing. You follow a law, I do whatever the hell I want.
That's incredible. Well, I appreciate you chiming in and sharing your story and your perspective. So yeah, please do, chime in when we open these things up at a different time. So thank you so much. And how should I refer to you? Pa?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, right on. I appreciate that. For those who may have been listening to me for a long time, even on terrestrial radio, I'm horrible with pronunciations, and I apologize to anybody whose name I mispronounce. I don't follow sports, so when I had to read the sports news on the air, people would blow me up and be like, dude, Bishop, you don't know how to pronounce anything. I can't pronounce sports names. Anyways, all right. The call lines are lighting up here. Call lines. The Discord channel. There's a lot of people in the room, and I appreciate that. Hippie, you had your hand up. You're on mute right now, but go ahead and unmute yourself, and we'll give you a moment here to sound off. And I do see a couple of others that I might try to get to. Chris as well. Some of the voices that we haven't heard before. But Hippie, go right ahead. You're on.
You got me, Greg?
I got you.
Okay. Pigster said that these people are here seeking asylum are here legally. Okay, legal. Okay, well, I'll leave that lay because there's a lot of talk about that. But what I wanted to point out was, in order to be eligible for an asylum in the United States, a person must first meet the definition of a refugee. I think your previous caller made the assertion that he came as a refugee.
I think he said he had proper like a green card of sorts to come here, and to get a green card, you got to meet a certain criteria. You've got to go through a proper vetting process. So that's how he came to this country. Now, was his goal to get away from the tyranny of China? Was his goal to find economic freedom and stability in the United States based off of merit? Surely we'll likely hear a lot from him in the future. I hope, because that's a good perspective to hear.
I hope so. I hope so, because he mentioned he went through the proper process. And we've got the 1986 Immigration Nationality Acts. That means that they must have fear of persecution due to their race, religion, nationality, political opinion, and their inclusion in a particular social group. So what they're doing is all these people coming across the border here in Groves, according to some sheriffs in Arizona and other people, these people are being given debit cards and are using debit cards to send money back to their countries to have other people come up here. That's not what asylum seeking purpose is. You're
right. There's a lot of concern that things are being abused. Hippie, I appreciate that. I'm going to try to squeeze in one last call here. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tie. Okay, John raised his hand, so I'll go ahead. I was picking between either John or Captain Mike, and John's the one who raised his hand. So, John, go ahead, and you're on. Once we get you pulled up and staged properly, you got to accept that stage, and then make sure you unmute yourself, and we'll get you on. So I'll give you about 10 seconds here to do that. In the meantime, I'll just take the moment to tell you about bishoponair.com, bishoponair.com, and you can check out a variety of things there, how to get a hold of me, my store, if you want to buy a Bishop on Air mug from different types and sizes and whatnot, you can do that. Oh, we just did we lose John? He lowered his hand, so maybe we try Mike. So Captain Mike raising his hand. All right, so Captain Mike, I'll pull you up here, but do check out the store, and also if you're interested in the type of music I listen to, I mean, it's very eclectic and somewhat dark. Can't help it. What are you going to do? But you can check out that Spotify playlist. All right, Captain Mike, you're up. Final call this morning.
Oh, how the hell does this thing work?
You're on. You figured it out.
Oh, yes, I did. First off, gotta say, great show, Greg.
Appreciate that.
Let's just close the damn borders and be done with it. I'm tired of the illegals. I live up here near Crook County. You see all the garbage going on with people getting mugged and that. You all know they're coming from Venezuela or wherever, South America. Let's just close the border.
But it's not just those countries. It's you got people coming from the Middle East, from Africa, from China, crossing the border, not within the legal ports, but crossing a river, jumping a fence, finding a hole in a fence. I mean, that's how they're getting in. It's definitely frustrating. Captain Mike, appreciate you chiming in. Glad you figured this out. I am going to see if John can get in real quick. Last word to John. Just go ahead and accept that staging request. You're in. Doesn't look like you're muted. John, go right ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can. Crystal clear.
Hey, Greg. Sorry, I fumbled last time. I couldn't get on
No
when
sweat.
you called me. But Yeah, one thing is, why can't we put this on the ballot? I mean, we had Pritzker put something about, changing the Constitution for taxes a couple of years ago. We voted no. I mean, why can't we put this whole thing, migrant thing, on the ballot? Do we want to continue being a sanctuary state? And by the way, it was, I think it was Rauner that introduced this, not the Democrats. But can we get rid of this?
Rauner had a kind of, how can I put it, a less severe sanctuary status measure that he signed. And then Pritzker came to office and opened the door even further. So you're correct. It was a bipartisan issue in Illinois.
Yeah. I mean, with elections coming up in November, does anyone know what's even the process to get this on the ballot? I mean, it'd be nice to vote and kind of decide once and for all.
Yeah, you've got to get like 600, 700,000 signatures across the country on a petition that's vetted to make sure it's all legal and ready to go. And then you got to be able to fund any defense of lawsuits that may be brought to try to take it off the ballot. If you recall, Chicago was looking to possibly get a measure on the ballot that was a non-binding referendum, just to gauge the public's interest in saying we don't want to be a sanctuary state anymore or a sanctuary city. Well, the Chicago City Council didn't let that on the ballot. So what are you going to do in those instances? John, I appreciate that. Thanks for figuring this out, and hopefully you will chime in more in the future. Guys, I got to get on to work, okay, because I do this on my free time at home, so I do appreciate you guys being here with me each and every weekday morning, but just looking at the time, it's time for me to get out. So have yourself a wonderful rest of the day. We'll be back at it on Monday. Unless anything breaks and is crazy and so on, then we'll obviously be back at it. But appreciate you guys being here. Be sure to go to the website, bishoponair.com, check it out, and join me here with Bishop on Air.